All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for Stream's Engage and Elevate webinar, and thank you to those tuning into this recording later. I'm Kinsey Wilson, the Field and Event Marketing Manager here at Stream, and for those who may not be familiar, Stream empowers developers to launch apps faster with our modern SDKs, providing all the building blocks needed to create reliable, high-performance, and feature-rich real-time communication experiences. We work with companies like TaskRabbit, Nextdoor, Strava, and many more to build and ship engaging real-time communication interfaces for buyers and sellers through chat, video, audio, and feeds components. But today, allow me to introduce Aman Hashim, a seasoned professional with an impressive background in both business and technology. Aman holds an MBA and has a proven track record of driving digital transformation across multiple industries. And with years of experience in leadership roles, he has successfully bridged the gap between technical teams and business objectives, ensuring that technology initiatives not only meet but exceed organizational goals. And today he's going to be sharing his expertise and insights with us, which I'm so excited about, on topics like the people first approach, product management, what the future of product looks like, and so much more. He's going to provide actionable insights from his work that you can also take back to your teams and projects. And I'm so confident that you're going to leave this session with a deeper understanding and fresh perspective. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Hansi. I'm happy to be here. I appreciate y'all having me.
Yeah, of course. So before, we kind of dive into what you're doing now as the director of product at Business Insider, I want to touch on, kind of your career journey. You went from product to sales, or backwards, sales to product, which is a, interesting story for sure. So tell me more about that transition and how it came about.
Yeah, so sales holds a special place in my heart, and I am so grateful for my experience in sales. And I think that I could not have asked for a better foundation for my product career in sales, right? So I started off in New York selling conference tickets, really getting the right executives to the right conferences, and moved on to finance in banking and a registered stockbroker. And from there over into technology sales, right? We were selling a SaaS product for innovation management. And what was constant across all three of those and any other sales roles that I've held is that you have to really understand the person you're selling to and humans. They are complex individuals, but just like technology, you see patterns that emerge, right? You have to understand the product deeply to be able to sell it well. And you have to understand the business or person you are selling to and what the value they're going to be driving from it to sell it well, to do well in sales. And for those of you in product that are here today, which I'm assuming is a lot of you, that sounds probably very familiar. When I was in tech sales, we were selling a SaaS technology for innovation management, and it was for a startup that was based in Milan. And they didn't have a product management function. So I came in, started selling, started account management, and we started selling to organizations like Accenture, Disney, Deloitte, Department of Energy, right? And they really require a much more mature product than what we originally had. And we were kind of in a bind because we don't have that function. Who's really going to build this? Who's going to go into it? And I just started learning it for myself, started learning how to write tickets, requirements, understanding the problems to solve, just started diving in, sitting with developers. And from then on, I just never looked back and fell in love with product. And while sales is near and dear to my heart, product was my calling. And I'm so happy that it started with sales because I think it gave me such a jump start in product.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like a very natural, kind of transition and something very lucky that I feel like not a lot of people found. You found like your passion where you're meant to be. So that's amazing. And so now,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, yeah, actually at the time I didn't think it was natural, right? But based on
Really?
reflection, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Right.
Yeah.
So I wasn't always certain. I was actually really scared when I was going from sales to product and didn't think that a non-tech role could go into product, but it worked out really well. And I definitely encourage a lot of salespeople that if you're ever interested in tech, product is a nice start.
Yeah, for sure. And so now you're at Business Insider, which I'm sure everyone knows, but a huge news organization, and you cover pretty much everything, business, tech, innovation, more. And so what it was it about Business Insider that led you to join as the director of product?
Yeah, so I joined Business Insider from when I was at City National Bank, and it was not a move that I was anticipating or expecting. And when I was moving on for City National, my goal was to get into like a big tech firm, and I had that opportunity. But when the opportunity for Business Insider came on, I started thinking about it a lot because Business Insider has really been a big part of my life. And I started reading it when it first came out. I thought it was so innovative. I still remember the feeling that I got when I was reading. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. It's accessible. It's appealing. It's aesthetically nice. It's written in a way that I can consume constantly and not get tired of it and have a mental overload. And, looking at the news now, it's so mission critical to get people to feel that way about consuming good information, right? And I had the opportunity to join, and I'm like, this is cool. Like, I get to contribute to hopefully giving people the same feeling I had when I first started reading it in a time when it's so critical for news and journalism to be out there. I really do think that product can make a huge difference when it comes to news media, especially the news media space now. If you follow, right, it's a lot of competition. There are some big players that are winning, right? There are others that have found niches, right? And there are places like us where we have an amazing origin story. Innovation is still in our DNA, right? I still get that feeling when I read Business Insider, and just want to make sure I continue that and be able to contribute to it. So while it wasn't the move I anticipated, it's something that I'm really happy about.
Yeah, and I feel like in the past, news was always like paper and like you got your newspaper, but now it is tech now. Like it's all online and through videos now. It's way more engaging. So it's definitely kind of moved that way. But you kind of mentioned, you worked at not only City, but PlayStation, Walt Disney Imagineering. Like those are probably the most different industries I could name. So how has your approach to product management differed as you've gone from Walt Disney to PlayStation to City to now Business Insider?
Yeah, it was a scary move going from Skipso Labs and where I was doing sales and doing, started my product career and into Disney, right? And Disney was extremely complicated, right? And it was a industry that I had no idea about because Imagineering, what they do is that they are responsible for conceptualizing, designing, organizing the teams, building, maintaining anything physical at Disney. That includes cruise ships, that includes the hotels, that includes the actual park, Star Wars Land, Spider-Man, anything you can imagine, right? Goes through Imagineering. And I joined the org and the team that handles interoperability. So you imagine at Disney, you have all these different designers. You just take Star Wars Land, right? Or like anything, right? So you have so many different types of designs and they all use different technology to do their designs. What our goal was that when you bring all those designs back together into a single software, right, to be able to then go implement it, it was a really hard thing to do because it took hours and people couldn't use their computers, right? Because these designs are intricate. So our team was building a way for them to do it in the background, be able to capture the data, create content management systems, create pipelines, create like a whole system around this, around building parks and everything that goes within it. So this is not an industry that I had any idea about. I was very lucky to have a fantastic boss there, but really the approach I took was that just be open to learning. Go in knowing you don't know anything, but you do know how to create relationships. You know how to roll your sleeves up and dive in. You know how to talk to customers. So lean in on that to learn as much as you can and go in saying, I don't know anything. So I'm going to go in and try to learn and do the best I can to serve those people. And that was really the approach because when you look at going to PlayStation again, it was completely different. And then going over to City National was completely different as well. So that was really the approach I took. And then along the way, built my product sense and my product mindset as well, which I was able to, it was really able to flow agnostic of the industry I was in or the company I was in.
Yeah, and I feel like that's great advice, not even just for product, but just like anybody in their career. Like always the ability to learn. Things are always changing no matter what industry you're in, but that's amazing. So what's your favorite park at Disney?
Oh, my favorite park at Disney. I still think it's probably like Fantasyland because of my kids. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's whenever we go, I feel like we're just there the whole
Yeah.
time. But it's I'm nostalgic about Disney and like the older ones better, the older
Yeah.
lands better.
Yeah. That's amazing. So now, you've been in product for quite some time. And so how has it evolved from when you first started to now with all of the, technological advances and different systems and processes and all those kinds of things?
Yeah, I actually really love this question because I was reflecting on it a lot, right? And I'll set the framework first. So, if you think about when you first started a product or when you think about associate product managers and product managers, when you first come onto the scene or join in a product role, right? What are the first things you focus on? You focus on execution, talking to stakeholders, writing the tickets, making sure the sprint is planned, making sure that we're executing, making sure we understand effort and making sure that we are communicating properly, right? It's all about execution, right? And you're given feedback about execution. You are rewarded for execution. You're rewarded for keeping your stakeholders happy, right? The piece that doesn't happen a lot of times is the product sense, product mindset. You don't get a lot of coaching around that, right? Not especially in non-product led organizations, there's not a lot of coaching that happens around there. Now, what's happened is that education, things like Lenny's podcast, things like courses like Shreyas's product sense course, education around product sense, around product mindset is changing. It's so much more accessible. So you're seeing that the creative part of product, which I think is a huge part, I really think creativity is a big piece of product, is now becoming more accessible. People are able to learn it in non-product led organizations. A lot of times, I don't know if this is the case for everybody, but for me, the people that I reported into many times, not all the time, but many times, while they were amazing people, amazing mentors, great bosses, right? They were more on the execution side. Just like anybody else, they weren't mentored on product sense, product mindset. And that's really changing. So I think there's an emphasis that's going to be on like, can you not only execute, do all those things that product is really required to do, but also bring in the product sense piece of it, being able to connect unrelated items, right? Being able to really understand how to get users to want to use your product, right? There's so much competition out there. That's such a critical skill and critical need. So that's really what I see as being different from when I first started. And now there's just so much more emphasis on that second part.
Yeah, yeah, and that's amazing. And you've mentioned before, this people first approach, and that is one thing that you have kind of remained constant throughout your product journey, and it's a pillar for your success. So, what does it kind of mean to you when you say people first approach? And can you just talk a little bit more kind of about that?
Yeah, I actually remember when we were discussing this too. It was a great conversation, something I'm actually pretty passionate about and something that I truly believe is never going to change in product, right? When you think about product or, especially within product, there are people building the product, right? There are people that you're building the product for to use, right? Even if it's a tech product, super highly technical, there's still someone on the other side probably using it, right? Or a system that's using it that was built by another person. So you have to understand people to build good products, is my philosophy. And you have to focus on people first. That means focusing on your team, understanding what they're good at, what are their challenges, who are they as people, right? Making sure they are okay, making sure you are taking care of yourself as a person. Then and only then can you take care of a product, right? And then making sure that you understand the person on the other side. So how can you really build something that someone else is going to use if you don't understand their psychology, their needs, how to get them to want to use the product, what gets them to tick, what's ethical, what's not, right? And that's all people. So you can be fantastic at building and coding and writing up tickets and all that, but I truly, truly believe that to build the most successful product you can, you have to understand people because without people, there is no product, right? There's no one building it and there's no one consuming it. So for the most part, I believe if you don't understand people and the people you're working with or building for, that it's just not going to get there.
Yeah, and I feel like as a consumer and a user of like a lot of different apps and like tech, it's hard when you're in the weeds. Like on my side, I'm like, oh, of course it works this way. Of course you hit this button and then it takes you here. But then if I ask like my friend who doesn't use that tool every day or something, she's like, yeah, but that doesn't make sense to me. So it's so important to like understand kind of how people's brains work, even like across, I'm sure you've experienced it in the different industries that you've worked in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the part again, it actually connects back to like what's changing because that part about being intuitive interfaces, right? That part is becoming standard across the board. That's just required now, right? And now when you think about people, you get to dive in deeper and to understand like, okay, you have this intuitive interface, but so does everybody else, right? So what is it going to take to really build something great and get people to want to use it, right? And without understanding people, there's no way that happens.
Yeah, for sure. And you've mentioned a critical skill about, the ability to navigate the balance between business and product. And so, I imagine it's a lot of managing up, down, sideways, every which way. So how do you approach that as a product leader?
Yeah, and I think that before you can even manage up, sideways, backwards, however you want to call it, right, is that you have to first understand up, down, sideways, and what those people are bringing to the table, what their goals are, what their business needs are, right? Because they've been hired on to do a job, right? And you're building for them to do their job better and also serve whoever you may be serving with the product better. So you have to understand like what are they like they're part of the business. You have to understand the marketing. How is the product going to be sold? You have to understand, let's say in Business Insider, right? Advertising. How does advertising work to be able to integrate it well? How does the subscriptions work? What is the value there? What is the subscriptions team going to be selling it as, right? And when you can understand all those pieces is then when you can start saying that, okay, I'm going to not only bring my product mindset, my product sense, and then manage stakeholders and work with them by understanding their needs and the values and goals and then being able to bring it all together. So I always tell people that join first, like, look, take the first how many ever days you need, right, to just understand the business first. Because for example, I really don't think you can build something great if you don't know how it's going to be sold, right?
Mhm.
And if you can't sell something unless you know how it's built and done well and like what's the value there. So it's very harmonious in that sense to do well as a business for that product mindset. And I do believe that the onus is on product to be able to do that. So that's what this field is all about. So why not lean into that and say that, look, it's not, this is what we're taught, this is what we're trained to do. So it's on us to do that. So we have to understand those perspectives to be able to manage up, down, sideways.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I feel like that was something very early in my career. It was like you have to like yes, you have a manager, but you also have to manage your manager. Like it's not just a top-down kind of funnel. It's everybody's collaborative, everybody's working together. So that's really great.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that point, I mean, just a quick point of advice for people that may be getting started in product, start sending a weekly, quick few bullet point updates to your manager at the end of every week and watch what happens there, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty amazing the difference you see.
Yeah, for sure. That's something we do at Stream. Everybody sends like their kind of end of week every Friday, and it's just a way to like be updated, and there's projects going on that you're not even aware of and you're like, oh wow, that's really cool, like maybe we could do something in marketing about that. Yeah, so it's a really great way for visibility and things like that, and you not everybody knows everything, so that's something
Absolutely agree.
to
Yeah.
keep in mind. Awesome. So you've talked, about quite a few things here today, different skills and things like that. So what's the TLDR on what product leadership will look like in the future?
Yeah. If I had to summarize it, it's that it's going to have a bigger emphasis on understanding product sense and having a product mindset. It's not going to be only execution, right? Execution is extremely important to do product well. Yes, you have to execute well, you have to communicate well. These are the things that we're currently required to get into product leadership. And you're even seeing it in the data, right? You're seeing organizations heavily lean towards not so much the middle manager of the product level, right? But leaning into getting more principal product managers that not only have to execute, but have to understand product and the product sense and product mindset. So I think where you're going to see leadership change is that that's going to be a requirement. You're going to have to understand product deeply, think about product deeply, and it's not just going to be about execution and being great operators. So it's going to take some time to get there, but I think you're already seeing that transition and it's well underway. And you're already seeing organizations on how they reorg, the way they hire, change in that direction too. It's just that education and that understanding, that need to win and to let that's what you need to win and beat the competition. And it's going to be required all the way up and down the organizational structure.
Yeah, for sure. And as we're kind of closing up, there is a Q&A feature on this webinar. So if anyone has any questions, go ahead and start dropping them there. But for you, I've got some rapid fire questions as we close
Sure.
out. So I'll start off with, what's your one piece of advice that you would give to people, starting off in their product management career?
If I had to give you one piece of advice and you're starting off in your product management career, it's that find ways to continuously learn and be open to changing your mind. Make that a practice, right? It's hard to do. It's hard to do for anybody, hard to do for me. It's not easy, right? A lot of times I get stuck in that pattern too, and it takes me a while to understand, look, my thinking is not right on this. But in product, the more you can do that, you're going to find benefit in it because it's not about being right, it's about getting it right. Because
Mhm.
it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Let's say you have a consumer using your product. They do not care if you were right internally or not. They care if you got it right, right? Otherwise, it's just not going to work. So focus on getting it right, not being right, and just being open to, input, feedback, ask for it, actively find ways to prove yourself wrong. And I think that's going to be a really critical piece in how you find success because it really it illuminates other pieces of work as well, right? So lean into that and be uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, as someone herself who's very stubborn, it's a hard pill to swallow, but I definitely agree. Like once you get past that and learn that you know, you're always going to come with a better solution the more that you collaborate and go through feedback rounds and stuff like that. But yeah, that's definitely a hard one.
Yeah, it's funny because being an extremely stubborn kid growing up, if my parents were hearing this, they'd be like, "This is not my child." So it's a very hard thing to do and change, right? Because we're so inclined to being right and trying to be right all the time, and it's a hard thing to do, but it's very valuable and it's going to work wonders for you.
Yeah, for sure. And as we, end today, what is one skill that you would advise product managers to build if they want to get, to where you are as a like director or somewhere in product leadership?
Well, I hope they get much further than where I am right now. And when you do, don't forget me, right? So, but the skill I would say is communication, right? Learn how to communicate well, and that also communication means listening, understanding, asking the right questions. It's all encompassing because if you can't do all those things and then also communicate well what the product is, what your goal is, how it ties to other people's goals, it's going to be so much harder for you to execute and get things done that you want to get done, right? You have to be able to communicate, ask the right questions, talk to your customers, right? Practice it as much as possible. Again, be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Don't be afraid to ask the questions that you may have, because more than likely in the group, people have the same questions. And for me, it was about asking technical questions and just being okay with it because I was around product managers when I was first starting that were way more technical than I was. And I was at first always afraid to ask those questions, but as part of communication goes, you have to ask those questions. You have to ask them one, not be afraid to do so.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like that you're nervous at the beginning for sure. You don't want to like look unqualified or something like that, but oftentimes there's somebody else in the room who has probably the same question that you're thinking. So it's always great to just get it out there, have some open communication. But that's a great piece of advice, not just even in product, but for everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This was amazing. I have a feeling that everybody learned some really great insights. Like I said earlier, this will be up on our YouTube channel. So everyone who's tuning in then, thank you for watching. And where can they find you if they are looking to connect?
LinkedIn, definitely. And please don't hesitate. Actually, what you could do for me is that if you do reach out, I'd love to hear the problems you're working on. It just helps me become a better product person. So anything I can do to help you on the product you're working on, please tell me. Any problems that I can help solve with experience, I would love to, because it just makes me a better product person too. So please feel free to reach out, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.